Now, for a very special panel discussion, I'm thrilled to present four outstanding professionals here who are here with us for a really nice conversation on how to tap creativity to drive growth in the new economy. And without any further ado, help me welcome Ted Shader, Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, who's going to be leading this conversation. Rajiv Sharma, Chief Technology Officer at Grid Dynamics. Shahab Aslam, Data Science Faculty at UC Berkeley. Mohammed Oasis Nisser, Director, Digital Platform Solutions at Aon. Please take it away, guys.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ted Shadler. I'm a Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. It's my pleasure to be here today with Sahab Aslam, who's on the faculty, the Data Science faculty at UC Berkeley. Hi, Sahab.
Hi.
And also with Mohammed Nasser, who's Director of Digital Platform Solutions at Aon. Welcome, Mohammed.
Hello, everyone.
And then also we are here with Rajiv Sharma, who's the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer of Grid Dynamics. Welcome, Rajiv.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here today, the three of you. We're going to have a very interesting discussion about how to tap creativity to drive growth in this new economy that we are so rapidly moving into. And as you know, we've been in a very unique point in history. Of course, coming into and through and hopefully out of a pandemic. But for the purposes of today, we also need to recognize and understand that the building blocks of digital business are here. They're readily available. Cloud and analytics, data science, all of these big software building blocks are here. And coming out of the pandemic has created this urgency and also this opportunity to think differently and to work differently. At Forrester, we spend a lot of time and energy and spend a lot of our research effort examining how companies can use technology to better serve their customers and their employees. We call it customer obsession. And technology is ready to do that. But everybody has the technology. So organizations are making huge strides in laying the foundations for digital products and experiences, for empowering their employees with insights and tools, and overhauling their operations and their business models. So what's next? Well, at Forrester, we believe that what's next is creativity, the individual and collective ability to work differently, think differently, and execute differently to drive differentiation and growth. So I'm so excited to have our panelists here today because we're going to explore these opportunities and these questions as a group. So Sahab, I'd like to start with you. I would like to hear from you what the new priorities are from your perspective now that we have these building blocks, cloud and analytics and software, they're readily available to anybody. What are the new priorities? What does this unlock for us?
Yeah, so I can definitely speak from a data science perspective and where we see a big movement coming in, moving forward. With a lot of companies that were digitally native, we saw the potential of analytics there. Like we saw Netflix, how Netflix do the business. We saw how Amazon do the business. And now a lot of established company wants to go back to to that model, right? We want to store lots of data. And that's where the whole cloud journey began. And digitization, we're putting everything in digital. We're trying to capture as much information. While we're doing that, we're just collecting data. And very soon we realized that it's a lot of data. It's big data, but it's of little use because we just did not know what to do with it. So there is a big movement right now is from switching from big data and large data and just collect the data is the quality of data. How do we actually improve the quality of data that is coming in? Because for us to actually do some actionable action on these data to create these insights and actually do something that improves, user experience internally or externally, is that having the right quality. So there's a lot of emphasis on the quality right now.
And so when you think about that quality, that's a very sort of human consideration. Somebody who understands what quality means would be part of saying, well, these are our quality metrics. Here's how we're going to assess quality. We need to make sure that the data maybe is representative of an entire world and not like a slice of the world, for example. So the ethics of AI come into this, I'm sure. So that human element where creativity certainly comes into play must be part of the solution. Is that true?
It is true, because if we go and collect data as just when collecting data, you're going to get all sort of things. The creativity comes in because there are certain times there's lack of data, and then you have to be a bit more creative to collect the right data. There are a lot of technical ways to do those things, but there's also a lot of human ways of doing those things, right? So for instance, I'll give you an example of digital twin. So digital twin is a perfect example of how companies are tapping on data. So basically you use IoTs and other instruments and actually kind of replicate a digital replica of a person or of a car or of a machinery or of a different process. And now you know what's really going on. And quality here really matters because you know exactly which are the important pieces. And that's where you go in and actually collect data that is relevant and is useful. So it requires a lot of creativity and domain experience to know exactly where to go. So it's a mix of both.
Right. That's so interesting. Mohammed, as Director of Digital Platform Solutions, you, I'm sure, think about the availability of the resources, the software systems, the cloud, the building blocks here. How do you think about what's next now that, what are your next priorities now that these building blocks are ready to go?
Sure. So there's a few areas, and one of the angles I always like to look at in any challenge is the three pillars of people, process, and technology. And when it came to digital transformation, a lot of large enterprises like ours have been heavily focused on the technology pillar, especially looking to build out the new platforms, investing in these individual capabilities, whether it's in the area of cloud, automation, analytics, etc. And what we have found is that, that can help you jumpstart some POCs, some pilots. But if you want to scale across the enterprise and, have a bigger impact that is long-term in nature and generates greater value, then you cannot ignore the people and process aspect. And as an example, when it comes to process, you really need to, before you think about digitizing any process, you need to first of all understand what are the pain points in this process? Is this really the right process for automation? Does this process even need to exist? Can we just eliminate some aspects of it rather than just saying, hey, this is a painful process, it takes a long time. Let me just add an RPA bot to do the same thing faster, right? So that's one aspect where we are seeing a change in sort of direction and emphasis over the years is bringing in the process aspect and then bringing in the people aspect, which is not just about looking at the human in the loop and seeing how we can take advantage of collective intelligence, which brings together the AI and the machine learning along with the human knowledge together for a business process to be fully matured and improved upon, but also things that we sometimes tend to think about later, which is about the talent that you need and the operating model that you need to make this digital transformation sustainable. And that's an area that continues to be a bigger challenge, especially these days where everybody's trying to go for these same resources which are short in the market.
Mm-hmm. The people resources, you mean? Yes, absolutely, Mohammed. That's so interesting. The kind of the skills thing we're going to come back and talk to there. So I think we should definitely circle back on that one. But one of the things I'm interested in is how you think about the role of, for example, software or automation in matching up or in streamlining that operating model, those processes, and also bringing people along into that. Are those things that you are working on?
Gartner calls the RPA often is a band-aid solution. So, it can help you get over the hump very quickly where two systems, maybe because of a merger or an acquisition, they aren't integrated today, but you need the person sitting at the contact center to enter the information once and send it twice to all the target locations that it needs for further processing. But what it does expose us to is do we have the back-end systems? Are they API capable? Are they API enabled? Should we be looking at an integration or an event-driven architecture that looks at those events that are being generated in the process and takes care of these updates in the back end without having to have the human invoke a bot each time or record a process and replay that process manually each time, because that's can be more of a band-aid rather than a sustainable solution, and doesn't really factor into aspects like data quality and data architecture, which allow you to take more advantage of these automation-enabled processes for things like machine learning.
Yeah. So I think we do want to get back into that a little bit here a little later on when we start to really probe on the organizing sort of model. How do you actually organize to do those kinds of things? Before we move to that, though, I'm interested, Rajiv, in how you think about the role of software broadly in this. Software configuration, software engineering. How does software change the priorities for companies in this new era?
Yeah, it's an interesting point of view. So, firstly, I come from an aerospace engineering background, and at that point, everything is a systems view. And digital transformation has different abstraction layers depending on who's talking about it, right? So today, like you join any company that has a service offering, and you'll hear the CEOs talking about, in a service company, everybody is selling, right? And so, but today, whether you're a bank or a life sciences company or an insurance company or any organization in any industry, you're essentially delivering your domain expertise to the customer, whoever that be. But that is sitting on a technology foundation, right? And the technology foundation is basically a manifestation of the organization's business view. So technology for technology's sake is meaningless until and unless it can add value to the organization's mandate. So coming from a technology company, we see software as an enabling layer, for everything that a company does. You do banking, you do definitely make sure that your customers get the right insurance or whatever you're building. But to get them faster, cheaper, better, you need that enabling layer of software or technology. And an important part from my perspective today, when Grid Dynamics as a technology company, or my role as a CTO in a technology company, we don't have the luxury of looking at one industry. We work in CPG, retail, logistics, e-commerce, and so on. So for us, what is important is how do we get better at understanding the enabling technology at different clock speeds in all these industries. So the insurance needs technology at a particular clock speed. The banking and financial needs at a particular clock speed. And we, as a technology company, it is imperative that we become a partner in co-innovation, which basically means that it's not that I bring to Mohammed, to Nasir, or to Sahab, 25 Java engineers, right? When we become a partner in that co-innovation journey, we actually bring some thinking around it, our best practices around it. So in my view, the entire notion of software being only with technology, is kind of erroneous. It is everybody's business.
Yeah. Certainly, very famous. Software eats the world. I remember doing a report early on in my tenure at Forrester. It was about 1999, maybe, and I wrote every company is a software company. They just don't know it yet, and maybe a little out there at the time, but certainly the role of technology in business has become so important. We do a lot of measurement of where the budgets are for technology broadly, and about half of the spend is outside of IT control because it is empowering a business outcome of some kind, a product, an improvement in operating model, using way better operational intelligence, for example, to run efficiently. And so there's a tremendous sort of need to have everybody involved in understanding what the impact and the possible value that technology can bring is. And so one of the challenges there is in skills and in practices, working together. Sab, you mentioned, for example, the need to have domain expertise in order to really be part of assessing and ensuring the data quality, and also leveraging the insights that come from data, from analytics or machine learning, to drive execution, to drive action, change, better decisions, and so on. So when you think about what the skills are and what the kind of best practices are in areas where you work, how do you think about what's needed, and how can we scale that? How can we scale that up?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because we're talking about creativity. We're talking about going digital and trying to actually make improve experiences, add business value. But one thing that I think that needs to happen internally is critical thinking. You can outsource all of it, but you can't outsource critical thinking. As a domain expert, you know what needs to be built in for your business, what is needed in your business. You understand that. So that needs to happen, and it's a skill set, and it's a mindset that needs to happen. It's actually constantly challenging ourselves. Are we doing it right? Can we do this better? So that's where you basically start thinking, you start becoming a bit more critical of your own self, and the creativity comes naturally after that, because you're like, okay, what else can I try? And that's where you put the whole, you collaborate with different people, you hear what other people have, but it starts within. And this is where having as much as understanding of your customers is very important. Domain understanding is important, but also you should always remember that not every customer have the same experience. And I'll give an example of Netflix, right? You have children have what children watch and what they prefer is, you can see a general trend, but a lot of time it's driven by parents, like what parents want their kids to watch. So there's like, you cannot just create one cohesive experience for everybody. It has to be, that experience has to be customized. And for that, you kind of need to understand what is outside and what's inside. And that is extremely, extremely important, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes a point of view that probably isn't necessarily in the head of a technologist, but would be in the head of somebody who's thinking about what that customer or product experience is. So very important to bring those people together. One of the things that we've done a lot at Forrester is to think about how to apply the principles of Agile software development, of course, but how do you become business agile? And one of the key principles is, in fact, what you just said, where people need to actually work together and bring that point of view of what customers need, and build a team, a multidisciplinary team, as how we think of it, that can work together. And you said something very interesting that I want to reinforce, and I'm going to be interested in what Rajiv and Mohammed have to say here, is this notion of being sort of, I think you might have said sort of self-aware or self-critical. When in our work on creativity, we have identified, and we use the same word you just did, which is mindset, to have a mindset of being humble, sort of admitting that you probably don't have all the answers, being curious, wanting to know and explore and maybe run experiments, and to be entrepreneurial, to take some risks, some personal risks, and reach out to people that may not be sitting right next to you, in order to think about breakthrough things. When we think, and so Mohammed, I'm interested in your experience of how you think about these multidisciplinary approaches. You mentioned process and people and technology coming together. How have you seen teams form and skills and practices to do that, to actually work collectively in pursuit of a common objective?
Yeah, that's a great point. And this is, to me, the crux of digital transformation actually lies here. It's not necessarily just the technologies and tools and even data, for that matter, because with some help, with some outside parties involved, with the right software in place, technology in place, you will be able to overcome that part of the journey. But this part of the journey, which is about the skills, the creativity, the innovation, where does that start? What people do you need? What operating processes do you need? So It's going to vary by industry, by organizational maturity. Is the organization culture has always been innovative or not? And so you might need to start by infusing some talent at the top level that is able to drive large change in an enterprise. If you're looking at large global enterprises, so you will need to bring in some people, some leadership, give them remit scope of being able to drive that change. Then you go to the next level where you have middle management, your program managers, product managers, your service owners, technology platform owners, and business domain owners. There will be people who will be open to change and adapting to the new ways of working, to agile ways of working, to transforming from a project-based model to a product-based model. And there may be some people who might resist that. So what you may need to find is a way of taking both in that journey. In some cases, you might need to realign people to more of a domain expertise role, retaining that talent for the knowledge and expertise they keep, while not necessarily, if they're not aligned towards working with, AI, automation, and other things, then you don't necessarily have to, get rid of that talent. There's room for everybody on this journey. So you need to realign the talent in those ways, and then, start driving this program and this transformation top down through the use of OKR, through the use of agile, whether it's product management methodologies or just using epic sprints, tasks. So everybody understands what is the role they're playing this week, this day, in enabling the outcome that is being sought by the organization.
That I think is a very powerful construct, and I'm so glad to hear you say it, and I hope it works and works at scale at Aon. I know it can. We spend a lot of time in our work with clients helping them scale that ability up. They might have it in pockets, but how can I replicate that ability to work that way, think that way, take those risks, be entrepreneurial, have that right mindset in order to do it? And so I think there's some real lessons there. I think one thing I'm interested in, Rajiv, is when you walk into a situation with one of your clients, how do you spot that they have all the right people in the room to really get this done versus when maybe they're missing some parts or some angles or some people that should be part of the solutioning here? How do you help them? How do you coach people through that?
I think the first thing, when you look at a team and digital building enterprise platforms that solve complex problems is an orchestra, right? It needs a cross-functional team. So the first thing when I enter or I'm reviewing a project or a team or performance, the first thing I look at is what is the business problem this team is trying to solve using their technology platform. What is the surrounding ecosystem of the stakeholders in where this is being built? And the third piece is what is the gradient of skills and experiences in the team, right? The moment I see that it is skewed toward, when you're building an AI platform, 5 AI engineers cannot build an enterprise scale intelligent platform, right? You need a business analyst, you need a user experience strategist, you need a leader, and then you need different experiences and domain expertise. So I think the first thing I look for is diversity. The next thing I look at is the gradient of skills in the team. And as I said, the ecosystem, is this team trying to do agile in a desert, right? How do you try to teach someone how to build a water fountain when they do not know what good looks like? So which is where then you need to work with your stakeholders. And for that, you need people embedded in the team with a very high emotional quotient who can take the goals of the team and work with the stakeholders consultatively and help them go through the journey. Creativity is very non-linear. Logic is deductive. In fact, I wrote a book many years ago called Intuitively Rational, right? Which was like creatively logical, which is a paradox. So it is interesting when you opened your session, you talked about creativity, transformation, everything was very soft, right? And that is exactly how a digital platform is. It is a medley of creativity and logic. At, at some point, you need creativity, but when it comes to execution, that is where you don't need to get into an analysis paralysis. That is where you need power coders, you need solid architects, once all the heavy lifting has been done. So I hope I've been able to give you a flavor of the way I would go about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's quite valuable and certainly relevant to the topic at hand here, which is how do we drive growth in the new economy? Well, there are places we need breakthroughs, and there are places we need to double down and execute, and and measuring against success, against an outcome, and then there are places we need to really scale. And scaling, of course, requires it working with people in the operating model, in the process, in order to drive that customer success and empower those employees. So that's a very important, I think, set of characteristics. I often find when I walk into a workshop or a client conversation that they have some of the right people there, but maybe missing something. And I heard of a model that I think might be a Spotify model, but this was actually at a very large retailer, and they call it 4 in a box. And they put together teams at that executive level. Mohammed, you were talking about kind of the executive level and the middle management. At the executive level, the 4 in the box is a business owner, a sort of product or initiative owner, kind of that execution person, somebody who understands and works in the operations. It could be store operations or warehousing operations in this case, and then a technology executive, a CTO in this case. And by putting teams together that have those same skills and identifying those outcomes, and again, Mohammed, you mentioned OKRs as a way to make sure people know what their responsibilities are that week and on the team, that becomes a very structured way, a repeatable, replicatable way to create these kind of empowered teams to do this. But what do they do? And this kind of leads us to the next question, is how do we blend breakthrough creativity? How do we apply the discipline of design, which is very often lined up against customer success, and then innovation, where we are trying things out and then ultimately deciding which ones we're going to scale up? How do they come together? And I'll just give you kind of the picture that Jay Patasol, my colleague, and I put together very simply. So creativity is mostly about breakthrough, if you like, and that happens collectively as well as from some aha moment that somebody has. Design is the application of that idea in a real domain. Like here's how we're gonna do it, and then innovation is turning that concept into a product, into something that you can actually roll out and get feedback on and see if it works. So creativity, design, and innovation working in concert to take something that might be crazy at first, but get it all the way through to a real thing that you can then roll out and try and see how it goes. So that's how we've been thinking about it. So, Sahab, when you think about your role in the work you've been doing, how do you structure that sort of mechanism from aha through to insight through to application, a successful application?
Yeah, so you mentioned design, creativity, and innovation. I honestly don't think they're separate. They're intermingled. They are separate concepts, right? And they're quite separate, but they are kind of like you can't separate them out. It's an iterative process. You go from one point to the other, then you learn something, you come back. So you have a learning feedback loop in each and every way. And this is how I think of it, is that to be honest, like I see that a lot of companies come up with things and it works for them, and then I see it happening in other companies, and then I hear it for like 3-4 years, 5 years, and then it get revamped again into something else. So it used to be Agile, Scrum, and now it's product centric approach, right? I think a lot of time but there's a reason those things are working, right? In companies, it's because their business objectives are directly aligned with all these things. So the creativity is, like in this case, it's directly aligned with your business objective. If you're doing things, innovation for the sake of innovation, or you're coming up with new things for the sake of creating new things, is going to add little value when it's fun for a while and then it just dies off, right? So I definitely say the things that last in my personal experience that I've seen in my career is the one that were well thought out from the beginning. So not the solution, the problem that they were solving for. So the creativity is needed, innovation is needed for the problems that they're solving, but the problem has to be worthwhile. So it starts with the problem. And why are we solving it? How is it tied? How does it help with our customers? How does it help with our business? All of those things comes together, and then you employ those things. And the way it works best when everybody in the company works together with the shared OKRs, with the shared objective, with the shared business. Like this is how it impacts. Because the way a lot of corporations are designed is that you have technology, then you have business, then you have these different areas, and they are worked as their own. I think, as you said, when you put the box around and put 4 people in, that box needs to translate all the way down, trickle all the way down to each level. And for everything we do, we need to bring people and that diversity and perspective, because as a business person, as a technologist person, I may not know what the issues are, and with the salesperson who might be sitting very close to the customer. So all of it works well when the problem that we're solving is actually a problem that needs to be solved, and you have the right people in the room.
Yeah, I think that's important to be driving toward an outcome that everybody understands is important. And I love your thinking about creativity being applied to identifying the right problem to solve as a way to really, really catalyze the right action. So thank you for that. Mohammed, I'm interested as well in how you think about kind of the life cycle, or the sequence, if you like, of contributions from creativity, design, innovation, scale, development, however you think about it.
Yeah, I just share perspective from the angle of 2 different roles or 2 parts of the organization. One is, let's say, the technology part of the organization. Their role when it comes to like product management, innovation, is to look at the feasibility to build aspect. Whatever the business wants to deliver as a new solution, as an innovation, if it's going to require AI, if it's going to require automation, if it's going to require multi-region presence, do I have the capabilities? Have I done the foundational work when it comes to cloud, when it comes to having an RPA platform, when it comes to having some machine learning and data sources that are needed for the business to do those outcomes? So the technology people have to make sure the feasibility to build and making it viable to actually build something at a low cost, at a fast pace, that part is taken care of. The business people, for them, the most important thing should be what is desirable for the customer. Building on Sahab's point, it's really critical to find the right problem before you try to find the right solution. So, that's, and how do you find that right problem? By having, I would say, an extreme emphasis on the customer. Whether you're using Agile, design thinking, any of these, concepts that have been proven and done successfully, used successfully by the likes of, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, etc. The key is their heavy emphasis on the customer. So you can use techniques like developing personas, identifying problem scenarios, doing, storyboarding, solution alternative analysis, and then prototyping. All of these are small, methods that allow you to deeply understand what's happening in the current state for your customer, whether it's internal or external. Where are their pain points? What alternatives can actually help them with solving the problem, doing a small test and pilot and proving it out before you actually scale it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And at Forrester, we very often think about that as outside-in thinking. And so how do you bring in that perspective of what is going to affect and have the highest benefit to a customer? And then, of course, it has to also bring value to the company, which is why having a business outcome is so important. There's a word that has come up a lot in our work in creativity, which is experimentation. And the question for us is always, well, is an experiment easy to run or hard to run? Is it expensive to run? Can we try something quickly and learn and adapt and flow? And so this is one way to think about, minimum viable product and Agile is to experiment by putting something out there and getting feedback. I think actually experimentation is also a mindset. Coming back to a word you use, Sahab, it's a willingness to step outside the immediate boundary and say, what if? What if that? What if this? What if we try this direction? And let's dedicate a week maybe to doing that. And if it doesn't work, okay, we'll come back. That requires a culture of permission and forgiveness. So the context of success here changes. If it's really rigorous, you're never going to get to these breakthroughs. But you also need to be aware that not every company's in that place. And so picking where you emphasize and where you start is a way to do that. So Rajiv, I'm going to skip you on that one because I really want to ask everybody one more question. And Rajiv, I will start with you here, which is, what are you most excited about in this next phase of our world? What makes you most excited in this realm?
I think the most important paradigm I see is the loosely coupled nature of platforms. And I mean, today, and I've been speaking about this, never in the history of humanity have we been at a juncture where technology has the ability to solve very hairy problems for the world. And it is only because of the ability to build loosely coupled systems, API-driven economies, leveraging the power of cloud, using large-scale data to train very pertinent deep learning and statistical models, and then hooking them up in a very autonomous fashion to retrain themselves. Now, whatever I've said, it's like cloud native intelligent digital platform. It's a mouthful, and it, as I said, I mean, I normally again say this: not every vice president is equal, right? So if I do a digital transformation in company X, it will not look the same at company Y. So the way, as a service company and as a CTO of Grid, our goal is that how do we make those mistakes in our innovation labs, in our sandboxes, and how do we bring this value to our partners, our customer partners, and say that, look, we've already failed, we've already done this, we've built this accelerator. It does not have everything you want, but it will reduce your risk to go to market. It will reduce your implementation risk. And we have already taken a slice in the journey. We are partners. We have taken that risk. And that is how we have designed our organizations as a technology company, solving complex business problem. And as I said, what excites me most is that never in the history of humanity did we have so much of information, so much of data, and so much of capability. Now, the end journey may look different depending on the talent pool. And you can't teach talent, you can't teach passion. But so each company will have its own journey. But I think we have the ingredients, and it's the leadership's call. It can't be bottoms up. It has to be top down here. The leadership is core to all this.
Yes, and that loose coupling allows a lot of separate, independent, and ultimately deeply integrated, co-created in some sense outcomes. That's a wonderful way to think about it. Thank you, Rajiv. Mohammed, I'm interested in what excites you most.
One of the things over the years is there used to be a limitation on who you can reach from a resource perspective, consumer perspective, and influence and have an impact on before, let's say, the advent of cloud and before digital and mobile became, ubiquitous. But I think in today's world, especially post-COVID, one thing we have realized is knowledge has become very easy to access, whether it's learning, we learn through remote learning and all these, universities going remote, schools going remote. Anybody sitting anywhere in the world should be able to access, learning about technology, learning about AI, etc., and being able to get on the cloud and create a trial account and doing some experimentation, etc. So one of the two things sort of related that excite me is innovation has no boundaries now. And even for businesses, competition has no boundaries. You're not just looking for, the next competitor over in your city or in your country. It can come from anywhere. And a great idea or a disruption can come from anywhere in the world. And also, this also opens up the possibilities for more, use of technology and digital transformation in social good. There's organizations like DataKind and Tech for Good, etc., which are taking advantage of some of these innovations and bringing them to places where they may not have had that much exposure and benefit. So those are two things that I kind of look forward to.
Great. And I am constantly amazed at just how powerful the internet is. I mean, you can see the bass behind me here. I left the world of music and went into software, and left the world of software just as the internet was kicking in. And ever since then, I've been fascinated by the impact and the benefits and the risks. You know, we have to mature our use and understanding of this very powerful foundational infrastructure called the internet. But boy, does it unlock a tremendous amount of opportunity and value. So thank you for that. Sahab, we'll end with you. What most excites you in this new era?
So I'm one of those very vocal people since I was a child, right? And you kind of scream and all do all those kind of things, but you only can people hear you that are around you, and they may not even be part of the things that you're raising concerns for. I think what this digital movement has done is that given voice to everybody. Anybody who has access to phone or internet have access to voice their opinion, and what I realized that what I was voicing things for, there are many people who are voicing similar things, and now it's getting combined, right? So and it's just not just like voicing raising our voices for certain causes and social good. It's for everything. Shopping, if I go shopping, my digital footprint is there, right there. If I had any issues or bad experience or good experience, it's being heard, and then the next solution that will come out. So I think we have given the voice there, and at the same time, we have some shared risk because everything is loosely coupled. As things are loosely coupled, the risks are being shared by different companies. So there is still monopoly there that exists, but with the shared risk, at least somehow I feel like it gets mitigated. And also because of this voice and this, as we talk, other people are talking. Like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, people were not talking about explainable AI as much as we were talking in academia, right? And now everybody's talking, and it has amplified. And what it would have taken 10, 15 years before, now it just takes months and years. So now we are voicing it, we're also receiving things what other people's voices are, and we're learning. So I think consumers are becoming very smart now, and and we are forced to listen to public, we're forced to listen to consumer, and that's what excites me, because we all get to have a piece of it. So
we all have a voice in this network world, and
yep.
It's has to be founded on trust. And so building these trust ecosystems is an important enabler for all of this. Well, thank you so much, Sahab. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Rajiv. Very, very interesting to hear and discuss and explore these ideas with you. We're going to invite our audience to ask us questions, which we'll be able to answer as well today. So thanks all. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.